Soul Farm, one of the features that I think everybody, my guests, everybody here really enjoys is the dishes that we eat our farm-to-table meals off of. We are a new business. We just opened. Our first real season was 2020. Yes, 2020. We launched our schedule the end of February, and of course in March, COVID shut everything down. So it required us to do a little finagling, and we ended up changing from overnight retreats to a lot of day events that allowed us to socially distance. One thing that I didn't change from my original vision was eating our meals off of mismatched vintage dinnerware. When you're starting a new business, a lot of times budget can be an issue, especially when you're doing your initial stocking of all of the supplies that you need. And vintage dinnerware worked out really well for me. I tend to like to do things from yard sales and used and resale, and I can be a little bit self-conscious about that sometimes because sometimes I feel like maybe I'm kind of cheap. I always like the word frugal better, but then I learned a word to apply to businesses that start out that way that I really liked. I really like this word, and the word is scrappy. I am scrappy. So Soul Farm started out kind of scrappy, and I think I want to stay scrappy. My vision of mismatched vintage silverware and dinnerware was great because, well, for three reasons. First off, budget. I got most of my pieces from resale shops, yard sales, things like that, for $1 or $2 a piece. Secondly, it was interesting for our guests. They really liked it. They would get their food served to them on an interesting dish, and they'd look, and their neighbor would have a different dish, and then they'd be like, oh, what's yours look like? Oh, this is mine. Oh, I like mine. And it was just another way to connect during a meal. And then lastly, things that you get vintage or, again, at yard sales or resale shops often feel like they come ready-made with a story. So I'm going to share some of my pieces with you today, and a few of them come with their own stories. So, for example, let's start here. Here's one of the very, very first pieces I got. This probably preceded everything else. These dishes here, here's a couple. Now, what's interesting about them is they are not old at all. These are new, but they definitely had the kind of 1940s, 50s, vintagey farmhouse charm that I wanted to create. They have nothing on the backs. It's totally blank on the backs. And then I also picked up, and these were just one-offs. I just got one of each of these. I thought this one was sort of sweet. This one was my favorite. I love this one because it's got a blue rim, and I will show you in a later video my vintage kitchen here at Soul Farm. It's never really been updated. It's never been updated, frankly. Not never really. It's never been updated. And I did, though, paint the cabinets, and they're kind of this blue. So I thought this was really nice. I got these pieces at a place called 1803 Candle Company. I think it's in Waterman, and they have a little shop in front where they sell things like this, little farmhousey kinds of decor things that I really like. And so I picked these up, and I think they inspired me. They inspired me to start looking for more pieces and start to build this collection. Here's another one that has a story. Isn't that gorgeous? I'm gonna put that up front so you can see. Now this one is this is real Wedgwood. And this has a story because I actually had this in a box sitting up in a closet for about 15, maybe more years. I found a bunch of pieces of this pattern at a garage sale out in the country. Now I love country garage sales because you just find things that are very different than you're going to find at city garage sales. And this is Wedgwood China. Now I'm going to put on my readers so I can read the back to you. I was quite excited, and I thought this was a big coup. I found a box of just mismatched pieces, well, not mismatched, but all sorts of different pieces of this. And I thought, Wedgwood, this is great. This will put the kids through college when I sell it on eBay. It says, the original manufacturers of Oriental pheasants. This is the Oriental pheasants pattern, made in England. A genuine Staffordshire hand engraving, decorated under glaze, detergent, and acid-resisting colors. colors. It's spelled C-O-L-O-U-R-S. So it's the real deal. And like I said, I've got a few different pieces of this, and I decided to use it, but with one thing. Some of them weren't in this good of condition. Some of them were kind of yellowed. I only used the pieces that were fresh enough looking that I would eat off of them, and the rest ended up going into flower boxes and stuff. I've got a little teapot that is sitting outside of the bathhouse. Here's another piece that has a little history to it. So one day my daughter comes home, she's at a friend's house, and she's carrying this bowl. And she says, my friend, her mom, had this bowl, wanted me to give it to you. So the friend knew what I was doing with the vintage dishes and passed this bowl along. And I thought, oh, how cute, a bowl. So I texted her and said, thank you very much for the bowl. She texted back and she says, well, did the kids tell you the rest of it? And I'm like, no. And she said, well, I've got a lot of this particular pattern. Not a complete set, just like the Wedgwood, but I've got a bunch of pieces of it, and you can have it if you want. And generally, I try not to get complete sets. Like I said before, Mismatched was the deal. But what do you see here? The blue rim. And I thought, wow, maybe this can be like my everyday dishes at Soul Farm because it matches my cabinets. So I said, sure. So we went out for coffee and I got a bunch more little pieces. So I think this is really sweet. If I have guests that come a day early for an event, sometimes we have a one-day event and somebody contacts me and says, oh, my girlfriends and I would love to make it an overnight. Can we come out the night before? And I'm like, if I can, I say, sure. And then I might serve them breakfast on the picnic table with my little vintage tablecloth and some flowers. And this lovely pattern wakes them up in the morning. It's very nice. Those are my pieces that have a story. But I do have a bunch of other pieces. So if you're in the mood to look at some other fancy stuff, I have a few quick pieces I think I want to share with you. So, okay, this one here. If you're into vintage china, you might know far more about this than I do. This one here, I'm going to read the back. It's called the Medford Royal Doulton. It's also England, and it's got a number on the back, D5667. Very official. This one here, this is kind of fancy now. Harmony House. I think the pattern on this appears to be grandeur. It is rather grand. It is fine china, made in Japan. All right. This one here is a little fancy for me. It doesn't seem to quite fit into the whole farmhousey thing, but I got a piece or two of this just to round us out. The porcelain china Diane is the pattern. All right. And then this one here is kind of neat. It's got a texture, and this one is Wedgwood. I think this is much newer Wedgwood. It's also made in England, and the pattern is Morning Glory. Right. And then we move on to Floridora, made in England. And there's a number. Oh, it's Booths. Booths China, A8042. Again, it's got a stamp, so it's the real deal. I like this one a lot. This is one of my favorites. It's always fun to see who gets this one when we serve. Just little, of course, blue flowers. Royal Victoria, fine bone china, made in England. No pattern here, but I don't know. Blue flowers, violets. Here's one. Theodore Haviland. This one's made in France. So we've got England and Japan and France. We are very multinational here. And then I think this one's a repeat. No, this one's not. This one, again, Royal Doulton. Again, made in England. I apologize if this is a repeat. I've got a few doubles, but I always, again, never get a full set. Now, you've seen a lot of what I have, and I've got more. I just wanted to pull out a few to share with you. But here's something that is really exciting. So I want to share one more piece of this to you. Let's go into the other room, and I'm going to show you that. So this might be one of my favorite pieces of furniture here at Soul Farm. This was gifted to me by a friend who was using this up in her lake house, like in Michigan. I think it had come with the lake house when they first bought it, and she was ready to say goodbye to it. And she asked me if I wanted it for Soul Farm, and I said yes, because at that time, all of our dishes and our servingware was being stored in plastic bins, stacked up in my closet. In every retreat, everything would have to get pulled out, and it would take over the room. So being able to just open doors and get to my dishes was going to be such a luxury. So let's take a look inside, shall we? So of course I love the rustic doors. And then we have an assortment of glassware. Some of them, I think somebody told me that this, I think they said, was like depression wear. I could be wrong on that, or they could be wrong, but that was kind of fun to hear. And then what else do we have here? We've got more. These are kind of fun little red goblets. And then, of course, we get down, we've got some little stoneware pitchers that we can use for cream and things. All the way down to our serving platters. And then, that bin's not fun. I love these two. I love all this kind of old stoneware sort of stuff. So you can see we've got lots of fun stuff here. And it's really easy to get to now. Thank you for taking a look at all of my old dishes with me. If you know anything about any of my patterns that you saw that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Or if you have any stories about old dishes, stories about old things are so much fun. Please just share them in the comments, and I hope maybe to serve a meal to you someday off of some of mine.